if it's purpose-driven, you have to always stay returning to the purpose.
Yes.
And define what that means for you, and always return to what that is, because your storytelling skills become seen by the world, and then other people are like, ooh, can you help us build our dreams? And that can become really risky because you get caught up in building other people's dreams and you forsake your own. You got to keep returning to your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, and who are you doing this for? And always keep that at the center.
Welcome to another Converge Sessions podcast. Super happy to be here, super excited today. We are going to be talking about growing a business with creative intention. And our guest is someone I'm a super huge fan of, super excited to have met today. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you.
My name is Aleya Kassam. I am a writer, performer, Masi to 3 Mitus, and that means aunt to 3 little sunshine nephews. Mitu means sweetness. And I make samosas, I make jewelry. I'm a co-founder of 2 businesses. One is a family-owned business called Wow Eats, building on a legacy of samosa making. Now famous on Twitter for making the Jahe samosa. And then the other business, which I am full-time at, is the LAM Sisterhood. I'm one of the co-founders alongside Laura Ekumbo and Anne Mora. And we make stories for African women to feel seen, heard, and beloved.
I love that. That's really powerful. I think we've crossed paths in various spaces, but we've never actually sat down and interacted. So I am pretty excited about this. And also we've chatted a bit before this. So also just generally, I think I feel the warmth of a lot of the things that you're doing and how much it overlaps with, the things that I personally believe in and what we believe in as Verge. So I'm super excited to have you here. Super excited to have this conversation, and I think there's a lot of value for different people that I want to see if we can get from you.
Cool.
So I'll be asking mostly questions. I'll chime in maybe a little bit after the question. You mentioned the LAM Sisterhood. We talked briefly about this earlier, but if you can, what inspired you to build the LAM Sisterhood, and specifically around the voices of African women? Yeah.
So the LAM Sisterhood began before the LAM Sisterhood began.
Okay.
Which is to say, in 2017, I remember, and I was not the only one, feeling like it was a particularly difficult time to be a Kenyan woman. There were very high rates of femicide. The My Dress, My Choice movement had been kind of happening. And I just remember thinking, how did the women before me deal with this moment? What would it look like to learn from their wisdom, from their ferocity, from kind of how they found joy? And I found myself really hungering for these stories and struggling to find them easily in history. And so I reached out to my 2 partners, Laura Ekumbo and Anne Mora, whose work I had been admiring for a long time. It was a midnight email. When I'm scared of doing something, I do it when it's dark, when I feel like nobody's watching and the curtains are closed. So I remember writing the email in November being like, this is a thing I want to do. Send. And we didn't know what we were doing. All we knew is we wanted to tell the stories of the women who had gone before us. And I was a big admirer of Too Early for Birds and had been doing some of the editing work with them for a while. And kind of reached out and was like, this is a thing we want to do. We want to tell these stories. We want to tell these stories on stage. We'd love to do it with the Too Early for Birds, in the Too Early for Birds home. And they were doing just extraordinary stuff on theater and community building and historical storytelling. And we're like, there's only one condition though. It needs to be everything by women. And researched, written, set design, the whole thing. And Gati and Abu were incredibly generous and said, we really get it. Here's our baby, go for it. So we began a 9-month journey. It took us 9 months to produce and put together what became Brazen with Too Early for Birds, which was the stories of 6 extraordinary Kenyan women from history. They were Mekatilili Wamenza, Chelagat Mutai, Wangua Makere, Zarina Patel, Field Marshal Muthoni wa Kirima, and the woman who took down Luanda Magere, who, interesting that her name hasn't been held in history the same way as Luanda Magere's name has been. And yet she's the one who took him down. In doing that, we realized, the 3 of us, we loved the journey of it. We loved telling these stories. And when it finally got to stage and it was really clear that there was a deep, deep hunger for these stories, one of the things that we were really seeking was complexity in the storytelling. When you hear about the way that the stories of women have been told in history, often they're very flattened. We wanted to find out, we wanted the mushene as well, the texture, the betrayal, the lust, the hunger, the desire, the all
extra
of it.
dimension.
We wanted all of it.
Yeah.
And after we staged Brazen, we loved working with each other so much. We said, gosh, we wonder if this is a thing we could make for real. What would it look like to do this professionally? And that was the basis upon which we founded then the LAM Sisterhood. LAM is an acronym for Laura, Aleya, Mora. We were named by Code Inc. Code Inc. were the ones who came up with the name Brazen, and they had been producing the Too Early for Birds stage shows at that time. And so then began the journey of what does it look like to make this a business? To actually earn money from it, to thrive, and to make it possible for other artists to do the same. So
I have a question. I guess it ties to the next one, but also it's a little bit off script. When you go from there, where you start with something that's driven by purpose and passion, and then you say, okay, now we need to figure out how to make this a business.
Yeah.
Did you have prior business experience? Did any of you have prior experience in growing and scaling a business and structuring a business?
Not at all. I mean, the 3 of us are primarily artists.
Yeah.
We come with different sensibilities, which is to say, I've had experience in the publishing world and experience in the agency world. Mora has experience in the behavior change world. Laura has experience in the education space. None of us had been involved in building a business, which I think in some ways came with its benefits, because when you don't know what the rules are, you don't follow them. And especially when you're looking at a creative business, you're kind of, in some ways, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Yeah.
And there's, I think we touched on this a little bit separately, but creative businesses in general involve a lot of figuring things out as you go along. But then creative businesses have the unique burden of having to be creative.
Yeah.
So you are doing something that's innovative in nature, and by default then structure doesn't quite exist.
Exactly.
And scale definitely doesn't exist because it's unique. You're doing a one of one. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the creative artistry for LAM Sisterhood? Because now you've been around for a while, 6 years.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at that span of time, obviously you survived, which, kudos and congratulations. But how do you then balance creative, artistry, structure, scale?
In a way, the business side was the hard part to figure out. The creative was the easy thing.
Okay.
And when we began, we thought that we were theater makers. We came together as 3 artists who wanted to make art and wanted to find a way of making a living off of our art. Okay. So the question became, what does it look like to make a business that supports that? And we knew we had the artistry down. We didn't know what the business side looked like. And initially, because we're 3 founders, we were trying to also find out what's our rhythm. We were putting a lot of money into it. I don't think at that point we were looking at what a profit model looks like. Initially, the first question became, can we even earn money from this? Very quickly, we realized that we are not just theater makers. Actually, one of the greatest strengths and also our desires is to be multidisciplinary. So the next thing we did was a film, and after that we went back to stage, and we then went back to the table and was like, okay, we have to make a business plan. So the first couple of years, I think it really the business side took up almost 70% of our time. Initially, we were doing everything together. One of the things that really helped us is we won a media innovation residency at the Aga Khan University, which is also how we know each other. And that was a program that was really designed around how to take a media innovation and find ways to make it sustainable, profitable, and structured. And the guidance from the mentors really early on is you need to departmentalize, and we really resisted that. We resisted a lot of the formal ways of structuring because we needed to learn who we were first. We needed not to have outside voices. We needed to learn like what running a business as three founders was without all the other outside noise. Things took a long time, and we found that we were spending 70% of our time doing business building work and only 30% of our time making. And that was really, really hard. It was soul sucking. And I think the only thing that got us through was the dream that we had. And this thing of we know what it's like to make work that we love. And the one creative project that really kept us through was Cabrazen. And it's audio stories for little ones where we tell the stories of brazen African women reimagined as folk tales. And that became our anchor, where we put our artistic, where we got creative nourishment, and where we put our artistic expression, whilst we were figuring things like budgets and filing returns and all these
compliance and policies and
What I will say is 6 years in, what's been really beautiful is that now we're at the stage where we've grown as a company, where we have more staff than just the three founders. We have a head of operations, we have finance. As we get projects, we expand and contract. Now the three founders who came to make the work, I would say we're doing 60% of our time is now in the making and in the artistry, and 40% of our time is now in the business.
Okay.
One of the things that has led to that is we had an existential crisis moment.
Okay.
In June of 2020. When COVID hit, we started doing let's apply for everything. We've got to find a way to survive. Oxfam needs communications people. All right, guys, let's get in. Let's write the proposal. Let's figure out the budget. Let's apply. We need jobs. We need to survive. And we had 100% rejection rate.
Yeah.
We had a deep existential crisis where we were like, we hate what we're doing. This is not working for us. How are we going to survive? And then we sort of took a moment and we said, okay, why did we get into this? And we were like, we got into this to make. That's where we have to return. And our return looked like the birth of the LAM letter. In the LAM letter, which is now, we had a little bit of a break, but now we've returned to it. The three of us come together as artists once a month, and we come to the page and we write, and we publish it that same day. And it's letters of light, life, and lessons. And it's a way for us to keep ourselves as artists in practice. So in a way, it's like going to the gym. The LAM letter is for us. We're the primary audience. And we realize we have to keep making work for ourselves. But what we found is every time we make our own work, that's when people want us to make their work. So the return to our art is the thing that has kept us alive over and over again.
There's something there's something beautiful and important in that, because as I've looked at creative businesses, one of the things I've noticed is pivotal in their success is how true they stay to their original vision. Because the validity, the value, and the potential of the business is tied to your initial vision. People came to you because of who you are. People were attracted to your art because of what you did with the brazen edition of Too Early for Birds. If that essence didn't exist, then you don't get the same people coming back to the LAM Sisterhood. So I like what you mentioned with the LAM letters, because of course, there's the story arc of being able to get there, but there's an important lesson for creative businesses to always remember that your creativity is your USP.
Yeah.
It is your unique selling point, and you have to hold on to that unique value because that's what, ultimately you can't create 10 of yourself, but you can increase the value of the one you.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's what I think that kind of highlights, which is really beautiful.
And also, Cedric, the most business we've gotten is when people watch or consume stuff we make for ourselves. I can't tell you, like, that's what's been kind of wild, is our biggest contract, like the contract that really like changed things for us and gave us stability, came about when a company watched the launch of Cabrazen, which we were making for ourselves as original content. And they were like, wow, this is dope. We want this. And that's why I say, like, bet on yourself.
100%.
It's so important to keep listening to your own voice, because especially at the beginning of the journey, you're going to have lots of voices tugging at you from left, right, and center. And it's so easy to become a thing that you are not.
100%. It's very easy to also validate not being yourself.
Totally.
Because if you do something else and then it works, then you'll be like, you know what, I was wrong to try and be myself. But if you succeed in being yourself, then you're validating the greatness that you're creating, which is really important. Again, even going to saying that the sisterhood is going to focus on stories that are everythinged by women.
Yeah.
And you're centered on African women. That focus of having your core audience in place means that then your expression focuses on depth rather than breadth. And then that's where people can be able to look at something and not just say it's dope, but then go, how can I get that? Because that's what's really rare in the space. So I have a follow-up question here. From the business standpoint, in your case, what role does storytelling play in growing the LAM Sisterhood, getting you partners, getting you opportunities for funding or for jobs and so on and so forth?
I mean, I'll begin by being a bit contentious, which is to say, I think sometimes there can be a focus on growth that can actually be harmful. I think we were very intentional about being small to begin with, and even not just small in terms of our structure, but even small in terms of what we took on. Because the more you grow, if it's sort of like building a building on a small foundation, your foundation needs to be really strong. And I think that there's sometimes an emphasis on growth that can take you in directions that are not helpful or useful, or it can put undue pressure at a moment when you actually don't need that pressure.
Okay.
So we were not interested in growth to begin with.
Okay.
Our first question is, can this make money? Let's just start there.
Is this viable?
Is this even viable? The growth question was not even there.
Okay.
The next question was like, okay, there's a market. This is viable. All right. Now the question of, can we actually pay ourselves? You know what I mean? Like, let's even just begin there. In terms of, I think we're now 6 years in now looking at growth. And we're looking at growth from a point of view of organizational growth. Can we bring in the kind of talent that will give the organization, I would say, the integrity, the structural integrity to start scaling, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of the quality of the products.
Okay.
Because if we can go deep roots, then when it's time to come out of the soil and go this way, then we can go this way. If we focus too quickly on doing this, it's going to be shaky, right? So that's number one. Number two, in terms of the storytelling, I mean, what we found is that the more of our stories we make and the more that the world experiences it, the more clients come looking, because they connect to that story and they say, this is what we want. We want you to do this for our audiences.
Okay.
So I gave you the example of Cabrazen and one of our big clients tapping into that. We've done proposals, we've done pitches. Someone will see us at a performance and that's when we'll get the gig. You know what I mean? It's when we're showcasing our storytelling.
Yeah.
It's not when we're talking about the storytelling. It's when they experience the storytelling. That's when they buy in.
Okay. The thing I'm kind of getting from this then is the storytelling serves a little bit as proof of concept, but also the vehicle through which now the partners, the audiences, everyone can be able to see your vision. So they get a glimpse into, this is a journey I want to be a part of. This is a space I want to support.
Yeah.
Okay. What lessons can other creatives take from your journey about building sustainable systems around their ideas?
I think the first thing is you got to make the work. I think there can be a trap where you're so focused on building the systems and doing the strategy and like all of that, and you're not actually making the work. If you're a creative entrepreneur or you're in the creative industry, the work has to be at the center. And that's really hard when you're building a business because the business is so demanding and it takes so much from you that if you're not intentional about creating the time and the space and also resourcing that you find yourself a business owner and not an artist and not making the work. So that's number one. Everything must be in service to the work.
Okay.
Number two, I think from a system point of view is, I just find if you're at the beginning of your journey, I just find sometimes it's not helpful to have all these voices telling you how to do things, telling you that the department needs to look like this. You need to have an ops department. You need to scale. I think you've got to feel for yourself what system works for you. You know, because also the creative industry is still nascent. Like we're figuring it out. I'll give an example, like the other business, Wow Eats. We make samosas. It's very straightforward, right? In terms of what that business looks like. Your product is samosas. You've got your inputs, which is the pastry. You've got your pastry chef. You've got your ingredients. You can make X number of samosas. You get it to the supermarket. This is your, profit per samosa. It's very straightforward what the model is. I think with the creative economy, the model varies. And like one of the questions we were asking ourselves right at the beginning is, do we want to be a for-profit company? Do we want to register as a not-for-profit? Because there are many, I come from the literature world and a lot of the, old literature orgs were not-for-profit.
Yeah.
Folks like Kwani, whatnot.
Oh man, Kwani.
Yeah, back in the day. Right?
Yeah, I have the books.
So old Kwani's books will be priceless, so hang on to them.
You know the white and black one?
Yeah, I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's literally on my shelf right now. Yeah.
So, the question of like, what's our structure? And we were very clear that our ambition is not, one, our ambition is we want to make money. So we got to be a for-profit, number one. But number two, the challenge with not-for-profits is you then get pulled into the agendas of the grantors and of the funders. And that's going to take you on a journey that isn't necessarily yours. When you're a commercial company, you build what your agenda is, right? Having said that, we find ourselves, interestingly, in a hybrid situation. So we take commercial clients, and then we also have grants that fund what we call impact storytelling. So Cabrazen, for example, which it will always be free to user. It will always be free of charge for children on the continent. Then who's actually paying for the making of it? And the first season, we, as the LAM Sisterhood, paid for it. But the second season, we got a grant. We're figuring this out together. There's no blueprint, right? It's not like, I'll go back to the food industry where there's a blueprint for how to build a business and there's established models. We're still figuring out a lot of these models. And I think there's such value in sharing process and in talking about it because there's things we can learn from one another that help then build and shape what we're doing and also give us the opportunity to do something different. One of the cool things about being in a country like Kenya where it isn't as established or as developed is we get to shape it the way we want to. You know, unlike in other industries, like in the States, for example, where it's much more established, you know, where you fit into a wheel and a way of doing things.
Yeah.
We get to create that way here.
I think, I think that's important because like when the frameworks don't exist, it gives you an opportunity to do something unique with your storytelling without having to try to be unique.
Yeah.
You know, just trust yourself enough and keep investing that personal capital into, you know, reinforcing your vision and following your vision and trusting your gut and telling your story and so on and so forth. Then you reinforce it and build it the right way. The second thing I wanted to add to that is similar to what we're talking about with like Diary of a CEO and Flight Studio. When there is a framework, you just repeat the story.
Yeah.
And then you kind of dilute the impact.
And I think some of that has come as an influence from the tech industry. Like I'm starting to see the tech industry ways of thinking seeping into and influencing the creative industry. And I feel I really want to push back at that a little bit because the conversations around scale come in. And I think when you're pressured to scale something, sometimes scale might not be the most appropriate and relevant business goal, right? Because when you're scaling, you're replicating, this may not be a thing that you can scale or that should be scaled, right? Number one. Number two, there's, you know, the tech industry was flooded with money, flooded with, you know, like, what do they fail, like break it and...
build fast and break things. Yeah.
That is a very destructive way of moving.
It is. Descriptively, it is.
Yes.
Yes, and actually in practical, it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've seen what that's done to the tech industry, and I'm just seeing an influence of that in this space, and I don't think it's appropriate. And the other thing I think it does is, by its very nature, creativity needs time.
Okay.
And when you put pressure of scale or growth, you're taking away from the time that it takes to make a thing. You know, like if you're like, we need to go to market quickly, right? Like this needs to be a thing that we can put a price on and then like replicate. In some ways, that's like antithetical. That's not the way you say the word or even what the word is, but it's counter to what creativity is about, which is exploration and taking your time, and you end up with a series of draft ones.
Yeah.
And we don't get the luxury then of high quality because we're so focused on getting to market quickly so we can monetize that we don't get the luxury of creating a product that we're really proud of, that we've had time to work on, to let it marinate, to get it to a high enough quality. Which is why I think there's value in being lean. Because if you aren't growing too quickly and too fast and you're lean, then your overheads are low.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of focus on making the work the best that it can get to.
Okay, there's something really dope there because, I agree on being lean. And I think in terms of like lessons you've talked about, starting lean and also understanding how to operate lean is probably like integral for most creative businesses and creative enterprises to remain sustainable. One. And then two, I feel like the other thing that you mentioned, which should be a big takeaway, is kind of deprioritizing scalability and prioritizing sustainability.
Yeah.
Like how much can we stay true to what this creative enterprise was built to do?
Absolutely.
And how much can we not just grow mindfully, but grow intentionally with the plan in mind?
Yeah.
You know, because like you mentioned, when you look at your sources of funding or your business model, if you go the nonprofit route, you become agenda-driven based on who the funders are, not the founders.
Exactly.
And then the vision shifts to we move where the money takes us. If you do prioritize scalability, you've done the same thing where you've shifted the money. I mean, you've shifted the purpose to where the money is.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. And one of the things that was really vital for us is whilst initially we were thinking, whilst we're thinking about business systems, we put as much focus and priority on building systems underneath the making. So what does it look like to build the LAM Sisterhood as a business? But also, what does it look like what are the systems that go into creating the Cabrazen podcast? What are the creative systems? How do we put as much emphasis into that, as we are into the operations of the company? Because that is also very tangible, becomes an asset and a tangible resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about there, but that is powerful. There's quite a bit there to unpack. I don't want to, but I feel like I need to move to the next question, which is about representation, which I think is important because part of what you said is you do center your stories on an identity, the African woman, and not just your stories, but the business and the enterprise and the purpose around that.
Yeah.
In what ways can the focus on representation also be a lever for growth and for positioning? Yeah.
Every now and then we'll get pushback saying, so you're just writing stories for African women. Is there a big enough market? Or won't you run out of stories? Or, especially with Cabrazen, but you need to also do boy stories because you're going to run out of stories about, for girls. I mean, first of all, we will never run out of stories.
100%.
Never. Second of all, I mean, we got into this not out of an opportunity, but because it was true to us. We are, as 3 African women, we are interested in creating and being part of building a world where African women are at the table and are at the center and see themselves in the world around them. So number one, for us, primarily, this is important to us. And also, it's interesting because it is actually a very lucrative positioning.
Okay.
Which is to say that, the African feminist storytelling lens isn't one, it's not one that has had a lot of representation in the world of stories.
Okay.
Right? If you think about it, if you look at the world of stories, who are most of the stories told by?
The white men.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So there's an overrepresentation of a certain type of story. Okay? There's a hunger for the kinds of stories that we want to tell. We're very clear on who we are and we're very clear on who we are for. And what that does is that from a business point of view, clients who don't vibe with that, they self-select. They just weed themselves out. So they don't even come to us. The moment, if they hear we make stories for African women to feel seen, heard, and beloved, if they roll their eyes, we know they're not for us. And we do get those who roll their eyes, or we get those who say, but what about? And the moment they start with the but what about, we know, what, there's other storytellers doing other sorts of work. Maybe they're for you. The ones who are for us will find us, and the ones who we are for, we find them. And that very clear positioning means that we don't waste time doing work that we don't believe in. And clients who don't vibe with us don't come to us.
Okay. I think there's a few key things that I've kind of picked up on. In terms of positioning, it helps not just with your audience and with maintaining your integrity to what you're doing, going back to what we said, the focus on sustainability, but it also helps in terms of rooting you with the people who you should be working with.
Yeah.
So you're finding opportunities in the spaces that you're targeting.
Yes. But always coming back to who are we for? The LAM Sisterhood is here for African women.
Yeah.
That's who we are here for. And that always orients us, which means even you as a client, if you're coming for work, we're not here for you.
Yeah.
We're here for African women. Now, if that's who you're also here for, we can work together. But if that's not who you're here for, we're just not going to be good partners.
Right. So I think which was, so one, it's attracting the people who would be willing to work with you, one, but then two, it also sets a stage of how they can work with you. Like we're centered on a specific focus, right?
Exactly.
So if in any way you're still in the pale, male, stale, old white man narrative in terms of your focus, whether it is from the investment standpoint or the storytelling standpoint, whichever, then they're not talking to you.
They're not talking to us.
They're not even nearly within your space, and you don't have to deal with having to deal with that rejection or that negative feedback.
And in terms of the expectation of the kinds of stories, you know exactly what you're going to get. We're going to try really, really hard to make sure that we're not making work that's in any way harmful to African women.
Amen.
If you, in your storytelling, expect something that's going to do that, sorry, we can't do it. And we're very, very clear about that. And I think that there's a way in which sometimes there's an expectation for storytellers and for creatives that you have to do everything because there's not enough. You take what you can get because there's not enough work. So, one day you're doing work for this person, the next day you're doing work for that person just to survive. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying the LAM Sisterhood is testament to the fact that if you're really clear about who you are, who you're here for, and the kind of work that you want to make in the world, it is possible to stay true to that path and not get diverted into other things and other ways of being.
Okay. That's yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but it's possible, right? Which I guess actually ties to that last question, because last question was what advice you give to other purpose-driven founders who fear. I think the different fear becoming too niche, but also in general, I think just the fear of being a purpose-driven founder in general. What would you tell them?
What do you think the fears are? Like, is it a fear of failure? Like, what's the fear?
So I think there's always the idea of, for people who come in and say, I want to build this based on specific value or purpose. Is there a place for this?
Okay.
Will I be able to survive? Is this actually viable? Will I find my people? And will those people be able to sustain my vision?
I think that's where you've hit the nail on the head. I think the advice is you have to find your community.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean your community in all ways of the word. When we made Brazen was made by probably hundreds of women. And by that, I mean there were women who fed us tea and gave us a space to just be, and decompress that we needed in that moment. There were women who read the script and were like, oof, guys, this script is not working. There were women who introduced us to Field Marshal Modoni Wakirima, who said, come, we'll take you, who fed us, who, if you actually start uninvisibling all the different people that actually come together to make a work possible, it's enormous. It takes a community. And I think sometimes we operate in an industry where the sole hero complex is centered, where it's like you've got to be this solo founder that holds the purpose, that is there to be the savior. And I think that not only is it untrue, I also think it's not helpful. I think that when you're centering on purpose is by its very nature relational. Who are you in relationship with when you're trying to make this work? And then I think you have to be in relationship with those people, whether it's your audience, right? Like build relationships with your audience, listen to them, build relationships with fellow players in that space that you're in, work together, be an allyship. And I use the word relationship very intentionally because it's not a thing where you're just giving or you're just taking. It's a dance, and you are
symbiotic.
Yeah, you're kind of figuring this out together. Again, and I think this is a very Western frame in the business world of I'm going to succeed on my own.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's
top
true.
100.
Yeah. And I think if you're scared, first of all, I think it's good to be scared. It's a scary thing. A healthy level of fear is useful. It's a scary thing, and it's likely it's going to be tough because it's a thing that you're kind of figuring it out, and there will be tough moments. And the only way that we've gotten through our tough moments is with the people around us. And sometimes, mostly for us, that's been African women. You know, there's the moment in which there was a moment in which we were in complete despair. We didn't know what we were going to do. And there's a woman who saw Brazen. And back then she said, I want to invest in helping you make you possible. And I want to put money into it. And you tell us, you tell me when you're ready. And we resisted it for 2.5 years. We were like, we don't want to take any money from anybody because we don't know what we're going to do with the money and how will we pay it back.
No money is free.
Exactly. And we got to the point where we realized this is make or break. And she said, guys, I'm still here. This money has no strings attached to it. You can use it to pay your bills and do nothing else with it. But I believe in you, and I want to help make whatever your dreams are possible. And she put the money in the business. And out of that money, yes, we paid bills, but we also made the pilot episode of the Brazen podcast, which is what won us the Media Innovation Residency at Aga Khan University. Our success is not because of us. There are others who have made us possible. And I think when you open yourself up to that and also know it is your role to make others possible, it then dissipates some of the fear.
Yeah.
It makes the waru a little bit more
easier to swallow.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah, I think what you said is powerful in terms of, one, finding your community, but then two, also being able to just decenter yourself as you're not the hero.
Yeah.
This is, if it's purpose-driven, especially if it's purpose-driven, it has to be driven by a community, like the whole team.
Yeah.
You have to do this together.
And then counter to that, or a parallel to that, even in as much as you're decentering yourself, you have to also, if it's purpose-driven, you have to always stay returning to the purpose.
Yes.
And define what that means for you, you know, and always return to what that is. Because it's funny, like, the more successful you get, the more challenging it becomes not to get caught up in other people's dreams. You know, so your storytelling skills become seen by the world, and then other people are like, ooh, can you help us build our dreams? And that can become really risky because you get caught up in building other people's dreams and you forsake your own. Do you get what I mean? So you got to keep returning to your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, and who are you doing this for? And always keep that at the center. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I think, for anybody who's like doing anything purpose-driven and storytelling-driven, creative-driven, I feel like I'm within that space. We talked about this a bit earlier. The focus on creators and, trying to create a space for those with the various values that we're trying to push with the organization. I feel like a lot of these things apply to us as well. So there's a lot of lessons I'm also taking away. I hope there's lessons as well for pretty much every other. Yeah, because I think it was enlightening. And
then find joy in the path.
Yeah.
Please, have a good time.
Yes.
Have a good time.
Critical.
It's so important, because otherwise, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's critical. You have to be able to build your impetus engine, build something that keeps you going at any given point, and find people who know how to find joy with you.
Yeah. I love that. Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not as easy to find it yourself. Yeah. Sometimes you need somebody to come and say, okay, let's go for a walk, and know that means something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, thank you so much, Aleya. It has been amazing. I'm now just going to be pulling you aside for like coffee frequently,
I would love
just
it.
to reinvigorate this sense of purpose that comes out of this. For any creative businesses, I hope this was really useful for you. For any purpose-driven organizations, I hope this is useful for you. And for anyone who is within that small business, creative business space that is trying to learn more about how to scale, thank you so
for the
much.
conversation, for doing this. It really helps to not feel alone and to learn from one another and kind of just know that we're like in this together and kind of shaping the world that we dream of, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes.